Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. First of all, if you're new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day. So if you're looking for some reading inspiration or for some recommendations for the summer months, then feel free to stick around. Today's video is going to be a library haul. And do I have a haul? I have a large number of books I've picked up from the library to get me through the beginning of the month of July, and we are going to talk about each one of these and kind of why I picked them or what drew me to them from the library. Something to note, if you are still wondering where the reviews are for some of the books in my last library haul that I haven't gotten to yet, I will be reviewing those soon. This weekend is a holiday weekend in the United States, which is where I live, so my company has given me some extra days off, so I have a very long weekend to relax, enjoy, hike, do whatever I want to do, and some of that's going to be reading. I'm going to read and get through everything that's from my last book haul that I still need to read, and I'm going to review those and return them to the library. But because I had such a long stretch of time off, I think I'm going to finish all of those, and I wanted to have something queued up. So I have all of these, and I am excited to go through them and talk about what I am going to be reading. I love getting suggestions. I do read your suggestions. I put them on my list. I try to get a hold of them. So if you have any suggestions, any books you think I should be reading, please let me know in the comments below because I'd love to hear them. Now let's talk about what we have in today's library haul. Also, a little bit about me. Normally when I go to the library, I just wander around and pull things that are interesting off the shelf. That's normally how I go to the library. I don't really have a goal in mind. This haul, however, I did have a little bit of a goal in mind, and I'm going to talk about it when I get to the books where that is relevant. First up is 2 more volumes in the No Matter How I Look at It, It's You Guys' Fault I'm Not Popular series. This is actually volumes 15 and 16, and I think I have some more on the way. I don't think 15 is where I left off in the series. I placed a hold from another library for these, and I'm still waiting on them to come in. So I should be getting a couple more on holds coming in, if that makes sense. They just only had 15 and 16 available when I went in for my holds, so I just picked them up because I was there. But I am going to be continuing reading this series, and I am enjoying it. Something that I found really interesting when I picked these up is these actually come from my old library district. So I had to order these from a different library, and when they shipped them in, it was from the library district that I used to live in, which is super cool because it means when I read this series for the first time, I probably actually read these exact 2 copies, which is kind of just interesting and cool. So I will be continuing this series. Next up, I'm going to show you In This Corner of the World. This is a manga, a very thick manga. Not really a series because I think this is a standalone. This is about a young woman who moves to a city with her new husband in the 1940s and is just the woman as her world changes as Japan enters and becomes involved with World War II. I think this is going to be an interesting read for sure. Normally I read manga series, so it's going to be interesting to read a standalone like this, and it does say on the back that this manga inspired a critically acclaimed film, which I would love to also watch after reading this, but I'm just excited to see where this goes. The colors and the way it was a standalone just kind of stood out to me from the shelf, so I'm excited to see what happens in this one. Next up is where we're going to get into where I did things a little bit differently this time, by my standards at least. So like I said, when I go to the library, normally I just have my empty little book bag and I just wander around looking for things that call me off the shelf, and I put them in my book bag and check them out and see where it leads. Occasionally I place holds from other libraries, usually suggestions or manga series that I'm reading, like this one, that I plan to read, but 90% of my books are not really planned like that. I just wander in and get them. However, I will be taking a trip to the Northeast New England section of the United States, which is not the part of the United States that I live in. And during this road trip, I'm going to be hopefully seeing a lot of sights. And I have found that when I take a trip to someplace that I'm not from, I like to learn a lot about the history or just things that I might see when I'm on that trip. I find that I just enjoy the trip a little bit more. I realized this about me after I took a trip in college to Iceland, where I was required to take a class, like a semester class beforehand on like the history and geography of Iceland. And when I was in Iceland, I realized I was able to assign a lot more meaning to the places and things I was seeing in Iceland after I had done a lot of reading and studying about the place I was going to go. So knowing I had this trip coming up, I am going to be reading a large number of books, hopefully about New England, Northeast United States. I'm not really sure what the correct terminology or where those boundaries actually are, but it encompasses, or the areas I'm going will encompass the states of like New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island. And if those words are meaningless, it's just kind of the northern half and then to the east of the United States. So just an area that I don't currently live in. The first book with regard to that I'm going to be reading is Revolutionary Roads, Searching for the War That Made America Independent and All the Places It Could Have Gone Terribly Wrong by Bob Thompson. If I remember correctly, this book is kind of just following different areas that were kind of crucial in the Revolutionary War. So the war that the United States, when they were still colonies, fought to gain their independence from Britain. I think this will just be really interesting to kind of refresh. Obviously, we covered the Revolutionary War in school. Like every other year, honestly. I had American history every other year from like 3rd grade until I graduated high school, so it just was a lot of American history. And American history I liked less than world history, but I do need to review some of the Revolutionary War stuff because I don't remember all of it perfectly, so hopefully this book will give me some refreshers while being entertaining and sharing facts that I don't always, or I don't really remember. Next up is one that I just pulled from the shelf, Shapeshifters, a history a little bit shorter. This was kind of in the folklore and fairy tale section. I hope to learn a lot about how shapeshifters play into myths around the world, and this should be a good introduction. This book I placed on hold and I don't really remember why. It says, And Live Alone by Dorothy Pitkin. I am not entirely sure what this is about, but I'm going to read it and find out. I placed a hold on that, so I must have wanted it for something, but I'm totally blanking. It's a biography. No idea. The next one up is The Great Gold Swindle of Lubec, Maine. I do not know what the swindle was in Lubec, Maine, but I hope to find out. I just thought this was an interesting piece of like specific local history. So I feel like I can either do grand history, like the Revolutionary War, which is kind of grand in the sense that it's very like overarching and you don't really get deep into the weeds about local people doing local things for an extended period of time. Well, this is more of that local history where it's just kind of a small town and something that was uniquely interesting to that area, and not maybe something that we learned about in a textbook at school, but something that is interesting nonetheless. So I hope to learn something interesting from this Great Gold Swindle. I don't know what it's about. And this one is by, or at least it's edited by Ronald Pesha. It appears put out by the Lubec Historical Society. Next up, we have A Year in the Maine Woods by Bernd Heinrich. I'm going to guess this is someone who decides to go live in the woods in Maine. I've actually read books similar to this where people either spend a large period of time or a large portion of time, like a year. I read one of a woman who spent a year recording new species around her home in, I think it was Michigan. There's another one where a man went to go live on an island off the coast of Argentina, Chile. It was a South American country, went to live off the coast of a country down there and spent a year out there and just kept his journal. So I find this kind of interesting because it gives you a day-to-day view of how life actually is in a place that's really remote, or just a kind of slower pace of life view. So I'm hoping that's what this is, and that's what it appears to be. It appears to be like a journal entry, so I'm hoping this is going to be interesting. This is, yeah, I already said, Bernd Heinrich. This is The Old Boston Post Road by Stephen Jenkins. This just appeared to be some more history of something about the mail route. This seemed to be some more history from the area, and it might lead to some interesting places that I will want to visit. So we'll see how this is. This is one I'm probably least sure about out of all the books, but sometimes the books that you check out of the library and aren't too thrilled about are the ones that wind up being the most interesting. And next up, we have Stone by Robert M. Thorson. This is the magnificent history in New England's stone walls. So I have actually not visited this section of the United States before. I take that back. I visited New York when I was a kid, not New York City, New York State, and I'm not going to be visiting New York City in this trip either. That would have to be a whole separate trip. But I guess they have a lot of stone walls, at least that's what the title to me implies, and I'm hoping maybe to learn a little bit more about them because I didn't really know anything about it. So that's what this book is for. Kind of an odd dimension, I feel like, too. Next up, in case you hate history, is something that has nothing to do with history. This one is called Inside the Painter's Studio. I was just drawn to the colorful cover and the interesting pictures inside. I did a little flip through it in the library rack before I put it in my bag. It appears that someone is just interviewing different authors about their studio and asking them questions about it, so this will probably be interesting. I hope it's interesting. I assume it's interesting. I'm guessing that it's interesting, and that's why I checked it out. So if this sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned for this book review. The final book in this collection is Lighthouses of New England. Your guide to the lighthouses of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, which are all states that I'm hoping to hit in my road trip. So I love visiting lighthouses. I think they're really pretty, they're very picturesque, and they play an important part in keeping everyone safe. So I hope to visit some lighthouses when I am in New England. And I'm going to read this to maybe give myself some ideas of which ones I should visit. Because when I look on Google Maps, there's a wide variety of lighthouses. I'm sure I couldn't go wrong visiting any of them, but maybe this will give me some more history and context and maybe help me decide which ones I want to visit. So that was my massive collection of books that I have out of the library. I'm hoping these last me through the first couple weeks of July is kind of my hope. And I will see which ones I like. If any of these sounded interesting, I will be doing book reviews on all of them, so stay tuned. If you have any suggestions of things you think I should place a hold on, I should get the next time I'm at the library, please let me know, because I love getting your suggestions and I love reading them. It leads to a lot of great books that I otherwise wouldn't know about or wouldn't read. So I really do enjoy getting your suggestions. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.